Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Hope Podcast today. Today we have Bob Eschliman, who's running for state senate down by Pella. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Can you just, by way of introduction, give us, kind of who you are and what got you into politics? Like when did you feel the call that was like, oh, I think I'm going to throw my hat in the ring?
So I kind of grew up in a politically minded family in Boone. Probably about 10, 12 years old is when I really started getting a firmer understanding of how politics kind of worked. I had a family where it wasn't unusual to once a week bump into, say, Governor Terry Branstad or Senator Chuck Grassley. And it was just that kind of an environment. And so as I grew up, I was exposed to, my father had a very large library. I was exposed to a lot of books. I ended up reading the Federalist Papers cover to cover at the age of 14.
Very nice.
My grandmother was a genealogist and a historian, and so I became very
For her profession?
Not really as a profession, more as a hobby.
Okay.
Professionally, she was the town HUD director in the 60s.
Housing and Urban Development?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so very odd that she would be so conservatively minded, but that's just how it worked out. And as I fell in love with history adjacent to her, I developed a very strong connection to Calvin Coolidge, and so
Silent Cal, right?
Silent Cal,
yeah.
and so a lot of the kids that were conservative that grew up along the same time as me, it was the Reagan era, so a lot of them grew up idolizing Ronald Reagan, and here I am off in my little corner, idolizing Silent Cal.
And what years would he been president? Was he the 19 teens or something like that?
So yeah, he would have been in the 20s,
Okay.
Pre-Depression. He actually was a vice president who became president upon the death of his president, and completed that term, and then served one additional term of his own. There weren't any term limits yet on presidents, and so he did everything he wanted to accomplish at the end of his own 4 years, and said, "I'm done. I'm gonna go home." And
what an admirable thing!
Yeah, he got rid of the national debt in 4 years. Now, granted, it was not 30 some odd trillion dollars at the time, but it was still a lot of money.
Just to steer the government away from increasing debt.
Right.
I mean, what a...
They were working out of the debt that had accumulated during World War I.
Right.
And so he managed to do that through fiscal responsibility. And so that is one of the big things for me is being fiscally responsible. But I continue to be active and engaged with politics my entire life, and sat on the sideline cheering people on. More recently, you sit on the sideline and you cheer people on, and they get to Des Moines, and they decide that it's better to try to change the system from within than trying to tear it down. And the moment you get assimilated into that system, you become a part of it, and it's no longer you're working to change it. You just have become part of it. You're assimilated, and it's disappointing to see how many people that has happened to. But
and what could be what do you do? Sometimes just looking from the outside, it just seems like a hopeless endeavor to we keep electing these people that we have high hopes for, and
Right.
I think they, in their hearts, truly believe they're trying to do what they were campaigning on. But then either Des Moines or Washington, D.C., it seems like it just takes them in and chews them up and spits them out.
Yeah, and that is the hard part. And how do you how do you get around that, or how do you finally put an end to that? And that is, it's ultimately up to the voters to say enough's enough, we're done. And I think we've actually kind of reached that point, especially here in Iowa, where
seems that way.
We've kind of had a Republican supermajority type control of the government for several years, but we don't seem to be advancing the ball. We're just simply sitting there and saying we're content with the status quo. And if you listen to the voters, they're not satisfied. They're not content. There's more they want. There's more they need. And that was kind of the start of it for me, is seeing how much needs to be fixed, how much needs to be adjusted. And I had a representative in the Senate who I felt like wasn't really doing the job that he was elected to do. And so I stood up in October and said, okay, I'm going to challenge him. Well, then he retired, and now I'm going to be facing someone different in the primary. But, you know, it has to come to the voters. It has to be them who rise up and say, enough's enough. We want change. We have to have change. We can't keep voting for the status quo and then expect it to change.
Yeah. What are you hearing from some of the like? What are the the voices you're hearing from your area that people like would like some of these causes advanced or the status quo to be broken? Like, what's off the top of your head, some of those things that come to mind?
It's the cost of government. The burden on the taxpayer is just extraordinarily high in Iowa.
Yeah.
Particularly for how small our state is. And as a result, we are seeing a lot of people trying to leave.
I saw a chart the other day that we actually lost population last year. And I thought, boy, we have a pretty good place. I thought for sure people would be moving here.
Yeah. And it's ultimately the tax burden. I mean, if I look at my monthly payment for my house, I'm paying probably 45-50% is just the house payment. Then I've got the rest of my escrow payment is property taxes and insurance. And so you're paying for me it's a $145,000 mortgage. And
not some like gaudy audacious house.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm paying, $1,200, almost $1,300 a month for 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. And it's largely because of property taxes.
I mean, that's one of the things that I see. I mean, you read it in the Bible, in the Old Testament, when God gives his people their promised land. One of the things is that the individuals had land that basically they had a God-given right to. And historically, land laws in the United States were that the people had the God-given right to that land.
Right.
And we really, I think we would just think how much better a community is when the people who live there own the property there.
Right.
Things are better taken care of. Things are, it's just...
Right. And so that's another one of the big things that I'm pushing for is the elimination of property taxes. Or in my case, I'm actually advocating for the elimination of all taxes.
That, I have to say, on your website, I just love what a big thinker you are, and you're willing to even say that. How can you even say, eliminate taxes? What?
Right.
How could? Don't we have a saying that says there's only two things that are certain, and it's death and taxes?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Jesus did come and reverse death, so maybe you can be the one to reverse taxes.
Well, I'd like to try. There are other alternative revenue sources, and a lot of places that have gone to alternatives have things like natural resources to tap into to drive that revenue, whereas Iowa really doesn't. And so how do you break that chain of events is you invest heavily, and you roll that money over time and time again, year after year. And if you invest it well, the returns are strong enough that eventually you completely offset the need for any kind of taxation. You just simply keep rolling over the investment and profiting on the proceeds, and use that to fund all of the essential services at the various levels of government.
Wow. Yeah. And you have a mechanism where you would, at least there's a possibility for how would that work? How would it, in Des Moines, you'd have to like set something up.
Right. So, obviously there's a draft bill on my website where, if you look at it and break it down, we're going to first take care of property taxes, get those off the books, by first freezing them, and then very quickly over the course of about 5 years, replace that with revenue from what I call the Iowa Fund.
Yeah. Okay.
And then as we're simultaneously doing that, then over the course of about 10 years, you're going to eliminate income taxes. And you do that by, again, setting a very low flat tax, and then incrementally reducing the tax rate as you're replacing it with proceeds from the Iowa Fund.
Yeah.
And then, the final piece is a slight 1 cent increase in the sales tax.
Okay.
Elimination of some of the exemptions.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, so basically the only exemptions from sales tax would be food and groceries.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then you use that as basically the sole continuing provider of tax revenue to offset everything else, to continue to add for the investment purpose.
This is a tax policy that I can just tell that you've actually thought about this. Like, I feel like a lot of our politicians, the real issue, there's a lot of issues with policy and all of that, but the bottom line is I just feel like they don't really like me. And they don't like Iowans. Like, why do you want to represent us if you don't like us? But I can tell you've thought about like, this would be a blessing to everybody.
Part of the problem that you run into is that tax policy is really the tool for so many things at the state and federal levels in terms of how you make things change, how you.
It's not just about revenue.
No, it's about control, very much. And so when you take away taxes, you take away control.
Man.
One of the first questions I get right off the bat when I talk about having a way to eliminate taxes is, well, aren't you just then putting the cities and the counties and the schools all under state control? No, local control is still there. But it's a matter of putting that control in a different format where there's just a different funding mechanism.
Yeah. Just having regard for the citizens of Iowa is like, and remembering that government, the Declaration of Independence gives us the framework for what government's purpose is, and it's not to control people.
No.
Right?
No.
What is the purpose of government?
It's quite the opposite. It's the people's responsibility to control the government. And that, I think that's, I have a favorite saying. It's constituent service, not constituent serve us.
Oh.
And so, so many times it seems like it's the taxpayers, it's the constituents that are serving their government, not the other way around.
Yeah, why? How did it cut? Like, we still vote these people in, I think. Like, it seems like it, but like, how does it turn out that they don't work for us? Or they certainly don't feel an allegiance to us?
Well, I think that power leads to elitist thinking in many regards. And that elitist thinking's kind of sets us apart. So there's rules for us, and there's rules for the rest of us. And if you look at what happened this year with the Second Amendment issue of gun permits and being able to have concealed carry in your vehicle when you're just simply dropping your kids off or picking them up from school.
Right.
And well, it was too difficult to get that passed.
This is in Iowa.
Right. But on the other hand, in a separate bill, just minutes later, we're going to give state legislators the ability to have a professional permit, which puts you on the same level as a cop, so that you can carry in the same situation.
Yeah, and that's like, we've got these laws that make it illegal, right, to have a gun on school premises, which if you want to carry a gun there to do something bad, you obviously don't care about the law. So all that it does is restrict good law-abiding people from carrying firearms. And so this law would have just allowed parents basically to have them in the car while they're dropping kids off at school. Like, the idea that that's even restricted is an obvious violation of an infringement on the right to keep and bear arms, right? I mean, it's like, we don't need a law for that. We just need people willing to enforce the Second Amendment, which is the law.
Right. And so I've got a bill drafted, ready to go if I get elected, to basically say we have constitutional carry in Iowa in name only. Because if you actually read the letter of the law, it talks about permits, this permit, that permit. I mean, if you have constitutional carry, you don't have permits.
Yeah. Right.
But there are school districts in Iowa all over the place that want to be able to arm their staff to protect the kids, protect themselves. But they can't. So I drafted a part of the bill that says, yes, you can. And then I got the response, well, what do you do about the insurance companies that tell them that they can't, they won't be covered if they allow their staff to be armed?
Sure.
Well, state regulates insurance. So
I mean, that's such a cop-out.
We can tell the insurance companies, no, you can't do that. You can't increase their rates. You can't cut them off just because they decide they want to protect their kids.
Something that troubles me, though, is that why do we need a law like this? We already have the supreme law of the land that says in the Second Amendment the right, and it's all about self-defense, right? Both individually and collectively. The right to private citizens to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So to me, we have if the law is going to help us get to where people can actually have the right to self-defense and defend the children in their own classroom if they're a teacher, well, by all means, we should pass it. But where is the will to enforce the law that already is on the books in the Constitution? Why don't we have that?
We have unfortunately established jurisprudence that says, well, we're not sure what the framers meant when they said shall not be infringed, or we don't know what they really meant about the Second Amendment.
And just for people, explain what jurisprudence is.
So jurisprudence is basically the thought of judges, the legal mindset
of interpreting the law.
Of interpreting the law. Of interpreting the Constitution. And there's the liberal mindset of, well, the Second Amendment only establishes a national militia. And that's the National Guard. And the National Guard is already well armed, so you don't need a gun. Same mindset would be then, well, we have firefighters. Why do I need a fire extinguisher?
Yeah. Because God gave you the right to protect your own self, your own family, your own home, your own school.
Exactly.
It is unalienable and
exactly. Yeah. And so there's such a divide on what the Constitution actually means that states and the federal government have to, at the legislative level, say, no, this is what it means. This is what judge. No, this is the law.
Right.
we're telling you this is how you're going to interpret the law.
Yeah. So we have judges with contempt for the law, and then they work backwards and approach the Constitution, for example, from a different perspective than the framers intended it. Like the Federalist Papers, like it's not hard to figure out what the intent of the Constitution was. There are volumes of books, letters that flesh out the concepts and the thoughts behind what our framers and the signers of the Declaration and the Constitution said and how they thought about government. Could you just share for people like what's the philosophy of government that we've been handed down in America, and like how did it come to be? Like what is our Constitution, and how should we expect people to properly what would be good jurisprudence, and how could good judges find the right jurisprudence to make the right decisions?
Right. So the framers, the Constitutional Convention was convened mainly because the Articles of Confederation were failing miserably in terms of both national defense and interstate commerce. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted something better.
Yeah, they couldn't even tax, right?
Right.
The federal government, imagine that.
Right.
Some people think that might be good.
Well, in some ways it might be. Yeah. The federal government was much weaker under the Articles of Confederation than what we have now under the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And so
we were in danger of breaking apart after the revolution, basically.
We were very much in danger of going very separate ways, not just two different ways, slave or non-slave. We're talking Northeast goes its own way, the Central goes its own way, and the South might go two or three different ways. You just weren't sure. And some of those states might have ended up going back to Great Britain. Some of them might have gone to France. It was a mess.
Yeah. And we look back and how it turned out, we assume that like it was a foregone conclusion that the United States were united, but that was not the case.
No, every state was pretty much every man for himself. And in some regards that we need a little more of that mindset, but not to the extent that we were seeing it then.
Yeah.
What we have now is we have a federal government that's perhaps outgrown what it was intended to be.
Yeah, but what was it intended?
To get to what we were intended to be, though, is we were intended to be a nation of states that were joined together for mutual defense.
Which is different than provinces, right? Can you just say for a minute, like, what's the difference between a state and a province?
So a state is, in all practical senses, we're like different countries of Europe.
Yeah, a nation state.
Yes, we have our own constitution. We have our own laws. We set our own form of government.
Yeah,
it has to be in line with the Constitution, but for instance, in Nebraska, they have a single chamber legislature, not two.
Like we have a House and a Senate. They only have one.
Yes, they have the unicameral, the Senate, however you want to phrase it, and that's allowed because it's still small r Republican government.
Yeah. I just think that's one of the most special things about the United States is that we are allowed to do, like, our federal government, in theory at least, preserves our sovereign right as Iowans to run Iowa how Iowa ought to be run. Because, of course, Iowa is going to be different than California or Florida or Missouri or Minnesota. Like, we just have our own way of doing things, and that's all right as long as we're not getting in the way of other states.
And then if you take it even further, within Iowa, Johnson County can run itself entirely differently than Marion County.
Absolutely.
And that, again, is part of small r republicanism. It's local control, but that requires local voters being engaged and taking responsibility when they go to the polls.
Yeah. How can we do that as Iowans? Like, we have to be awake and engaged as voters. Like, God gave us this privilege and responsibility to be engaged. Otherwise, we're just going to lose it, right?
Right. The government closest to you is actually the most important.
Yes.
And I think we've lost touch with that. And it's going to require an education campaign. It's going to require a lot of us going out there and saying, hey, your city council matters. Your school board matters
a lot. Yeah.
Your county supervisors, they matter.
Yes.
If you're voting for them, know who you're voting for and what they stand for and what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because it does matter. It matters a great deal.
Well, and if you're part of a little political group, the Central Committee for either Republican or Democrat, like, how about this? Recruit and train people up who actually care for the citizen, the community that they're living in. If they're, working for the school board, who care for students, who you would like trust to put maybe a student in their care for an afternoon. Like, if you're not willing to do that, you're probably not a good idea to put them in charge of the entire school district, right? Like basic things.
Right. And it's about knowing how it's all supposed to work as well. So
yeah.
I can't stress enough how important it is to have civics education in our schools.
Mm-hmm.
As a homeschool dad,
and civics education,
it's really easy for me to teach my kids civics.
Tell us what civics is.
So civics is how do you engage within your governmental system? How do you have free discourse between citizens? How do you engage as a citizen with your city council, with your school board, with your county supervisors?
Yeah. It's really funny. I was in prison. When I was in prison for January 6th, I ran into a guy. I became really good friends with him. His name was Marcel, and he was from the hood in Minneapolis. And I was just talking to him about government and stuff because my case was January 6th. It was obviously very tied to the government, so people would ask me about stuff. And I was telling him some of this stuff that I was a homeschool kid about how school boards work and how I'm like, he's complaining to me because I had asked him, side story, about George Floyd riots. Mm-hmm. And because he was from Minneapolis, he was a black guy. And like, I figured he would probably know, like, okay, what was the deal? I'm like, Marcel, people get killed every day by cops. Why did George Floyd set off this firestorm of craziness? And he was like, oh, well, nobody really cared about George Floyd in my community. The issue for us was the Minneapolis Police Department had been so corrupt for so long that we finally all just had enough and threw a fit. And I was like, okay, I mean, I could see where that could be. And then so I started asking him this line of questioning about civics. I didn't know it's called civics, but I'm like, well, you guys, you could get involved in like elect the mayor and the people who run the police department and make changes. And he's like, how come nobody ever told me this stuff? I didn't know we could do that. And like, we have whole communities of people who have no idea.
Yeah, it's terrifying when you actually start talking to some people, especially younger people, about how everything's supposed to work and how they're supposed to be involved in the process, but they almost take it as a badge of honor that they're not involved because
they're not tied to the corruption,
or I'm above all this petty bickering about politics. Well, it's not petty bickering. It's actually discourse.
Yes.
And there's a difference.
Good point.
It's a contest of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Whose ideas are better? Whose ideas are supreme?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we need to get back to is, and that's what Charlie Kirk was trying to do, is to say, okay, here's your idea. Here's my idea. Now, which one sounds more reasonable?
Let's have the debate.
Let's talk about it.
It's what it is spiritual illumination. It's light, being light to the world.
Yes.
To like bring things into the light of day, and then we can hash them out. Because what is true, what is just, what is righteous is so attractive when it is seen and compared and contrasted to what just is wrong and oppressive and tyrannical and all that stuff. So
when I started running, I work in an environment where every day I'm dealing with people who are Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Right.
And both politically and spiritually.
Yeah.
And when you actually start talking with them, not over them, not around them, when you actually start talking with them and you start sharing some of the truth with them, and they start seeing how things are supposed to work, and all of a sudden you start getting support from people that normally wouldn't support a guy like me.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because now they get it. They understand. They know that I'm not just going up there to flap my gums and collect a check or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm actually there because I care. I'm there because I want to make a difference. I'm there because the status quo isn't working. We need someone who's willing to go in there and try to make it better. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you're doing that. Thank you for just caring. I guess it makes sense. Government it's so powerful, and it does need to be powerful. God gives the sword of justice to government, and there's a reason. The Bible says that he does not bear the sword for nothing, right? But the government is God's servant to do us good. And if we in America, we are the government. If you have the ability to vote, you are the government. So what is a citizen's first responsibility? Just as an American, if I want to serve my country or my community or whatever, what's the first thing I ought to do?
Educate yourself.
Okay.
Understand the issues, understand where everybody sits in terms of what are they trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
What does it really mean? Don't just take the words, actually dig into it a little bit.
Yeah.
And really understand, okay, so it's called the Save America Act, but what is it really trying to do? And how does it help me? How does it help my neighbor? And I think when you have a better understanding of what's going on, you start to ignore the stuff that comes out of the TV. You start ignoring the stuff that you see on social media, and you start actually caring about the outcome a little more.
You're not on a team so much as you just want it to be right.
Right. I am a Republican because my ideals more closely align with the stated ideals of the Republican Party. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be loyal to every R or every person with an R behind their name.
Right.
It's about what is right for the people.
Yeah.
And in particular, in my case, what's right for Iowa Senate District 19.
Yeah.
Because it might not necessarily be the same as what's right for Senate District 13 or 15.
And you might have a disagreement with another Republican from one of those districts, which would be fine. That's why we have government, to hash through these things. So what you're talking about as what we need to do to educate ourselves is basically journalism. You're an award-winning journalist. You've been in media for how many years? Can you talk a little bit about okay, what's the role of media? And then as a citizen, how do I deal with the chaos that is just coming at me from TV and social media and newspapers and everything?
Right. So I actually, in high school, had to take a class. It was called Current Events. And it was literally a one-semester course on learning how to interrogate the news.
The news. Yeah. Interesting.
And so what you do is you take the information that's being provided on the printed product, and you actually start thinking about it. You start digging into it, and you start looking, are there other sources of information that either confirm or deny what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
And you educate yourself. And then you make an educated decision on how to proceed.
Right.
That's how it's supposed to work. Well, unfortunately, we have an environment now where too many of the journalists that we've got in the world today have all been indoctrinated through colleges and universities, where it's a heavily liberal environment where truth is fluid. It's my truth or your truth. It's not the truth. And so as a result, it's no longer about serving my community or serving my readers by providing them with the truth. It's about advocating for whatever we think is
Yeah.
in the best interest, the public interest.
Which
And
is decided in some, boardroom or something. That's
Right,
probably not
exactly.
even that journalist making that decision.
right. And so I don't think that journalists are doing it necessarily on purpose because they're trying to engage in any kind of nefarious act. It's just what they've been taught. And so, when I was in journalism,
They're just going downstream.
Exactly. When I was in journalism and I was an editor or a newspaper leader, the first thing I'm doing is unteaching, unlearning these kids
Somebody you hired,
some of the
you're
stuff
helping them.
that they've been indoctrinated with, to kind of show them, no, okay, that's fine in a lab environment in a school, but this is the real world.
Right.
This is how things really work. I need you to function within that.
Yeah.
And I want you to just provide me with the facts. Don't tell me what you think. That's for the opinion page. Just give me the facts. We'll let the reader decide.
Yeah. What do you think God has a design for media, right? What is a publication's responsibility? Even zooming out from obviously, they all have, they need to make money and all of that stuff, but to faithfully fulfill the duty that God gives a journalist. How, what is he asking from them to do? They have so much power in society.
So as a Christian in journalism, my job was to simply be tough but fair, and provide the truth. So the number one question I always had to answer whenever I was done with an article is this true? If it is, okay, how does it serve my community? What does it mean to me, meaning my reader? If I can answer all those questions, then I can do it faithfully, and it's not going to be something where I'm trying to steer them in a particular direction. I'm just providing them with the facts.
Yeah.
I'm providing them with the truth. It's
Depending
up to
on them to make a wise decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Obviously, prayerfully, you want them to make the right decision.
Of course. And you can help them make the right decision.
And that's where the opinion page then balances it a little bit to say, okay, we've provided you with the facts. Now here's what perhaps you ought to think about.
Here's a perspective.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's so needed. So were you, in all your years working for newspapers and media and all that, did you, pursuing journalism the correct way, the righteous way, doing your duty, how does that affect your ability to be promoted in the industry, to make a profit as a newspaper or as a media outlet? Does it make it harder? I mean, how does that?
So, my story was national news at one point in time.
Yeah.
Where, on my own personal time
Tell us the story.
So, I have a blog where the audience is just simply immediate friends and family, probably about 24 people.
Bob's personal blog.
Yeah. And it was literally nothing more than that. It had no, bobeschliman.com or anything like that on it. It was just a blogger / such and such.
Yeah,
address.
and one of these Substack or whatever the equivalent was at that time. Yeah.
And so it was just a place to vent, to be able to get things off my chest.
You're a writer. It's cathartic, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so we had two similar situations going on. We had the release of the Queen James Bible, which is
what is the Queen James Bible?
For lack of a better term, it's a heavily edited version of the King James Bible, where they've basically removed all references to any kind of homosexual or transgender sin.
Okay.
And then there was an effort to get youth pastors at churches around the country to soften their view on LGBTQ issues.
Like an effort, like from big national nonprofits or from the government,
it wasn't government. This was a very grassroots effort within the LGBTQ movement.
Okay.
To encourage, stress, force, coerce,
by whatever means necessary to get youth pastors
to get youth pastors to just go along, get along.
And love your neighbor. Come on.
Exactly. And so my writing style at that time for opinion pieces was to tend to be a little snarky.
Yep.
But I also tended to use my opponent's language and turn it on them.
Yeah, just quote it back to them.
Exactly. This is what they exactly are saying they're going to do. This is exactly what they say they are doing.
Yep.
And so I talk about all that, and I use their own terms. Gestapo is a term that was actually developed by the LGBTQ movement. There is a Gay Straight Alliance group for young professionals. It's called LGBTQXYZ. And so
as a journalist, have done your research and
I had
informed yourself.
And so I used terms like those. And we had a former employee who shared that information, that blog. I don't even know how they found it, but I'm assuming they probably did some kind of Google search or something.
Well, maybe that person was at least doing some journalism. That's good.
and so they shared it with a guy who his blog was essentially just simply muckraking and throwing mud at other journalists. That's pretty much all he did for a living.
Okay.
And so they sent it to him. He saw it. He's immediately like,
yep, this
blogging
is
about
your private blog, but this person knew that you worked for this news, whatever. Yeah.
I'm incapable of being able to do my job because I hold these views.
Of course.
Essentially is the gist of it. Well, then he goes and shares it with the Des Moines Register. And the next thing you know, you've got the Des Moines Register and all the Des Moines TV stations converging on Little Newton Daily News and saying, how could you? What is wrong with you? And
how could you be so intolerant?
Exactly.
Yeah.
One particular Des Moines TV station went and interviewed a lady that I've never met in my entire life to talk about what my blog post meant to her. Yeah. And of course for the sympathy, they've got her on an oxygen tank and her daughter's a lesbian and
yeah, no doubt it was totally devastating and tore her world apart. And
exactly. So I'm suspended for a few days, and then I come in and they say, nope, you're fired. That then led to me connecting with First Liberty Institute.
And they're like a nonprofit advocate for pro-freedom, pro-liberty defense.
So they specifically do First Amendment freedom of religion cases throughout the country for people that have been discriminated against, particularly Christians who were discriminated
against. Did you
against.
make any, because at this point we had, or did we, I mean, the Declaration of Independence says that your right to liberty, which includes the right to the free exercise of your religion, is guaranteed, and it's the government's responsibility to preserve that right, not a nonprofit's response. Now, it's nice that they did that, but did anyone from the government take any efforts? I mean,
no, nobody. In fact, it was actually hard to get churches to come to my defense.
Wow.
I had exactly 2 pastors in the town of Newton that immediately jumped to my defense. And
man,
it was, well, I should say 3. I had my own personal pastor and then 2 additional.
Well, good. Yeah. Okay. Good for them. I mean, like those are men of integrity.
Right.
Yeah.
And one actually ended up getting relocated because his own congregation opposed what he was doing.
Wow.
And it was eye-opening, very eye-opening. But I think it also equipped me for what I'm doing now, because at this point in time,
Yeah, you've been in the trenches.
Satan's thrown everything he really can at me, and I'm still here.
Good for you. I love it.
But yeah, I ended up having Matt Whitaker as my attorney.
Who is now
He eventually
ambassador
became
to NATO, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He eventually became acting Attorney General of the United States, and now he's the ambassador to NATO.
He must. How was he to work with? I mean, that's kind of a neat story.
The first thing I always tell everybody about Matt is the very first day that I was actually at his law office, we ended up having to do a phone interview in his actual office. And so we went in there, and this was completely unplanned. It just kind of popped up. We had about 5 minutes notice.
Yeah.
And so we ran in there real quick to do it. And
An interview with like a media outlet?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we were going in there, I noticed he actually had his Bible out. He'd been reading his Bible before I showed up that day.
Good for him.
And so I'd always known that he was a pretty solid Christian guy, but that told me a lot. When you're in the trenches, and the guy that's basically helping take the arrows for you is reading the Bible every day.
Yeah,
it means a lot.
Yeah. I mean, and standing up for righteousness one of the tragedies of modern America is like our churches don't stand up for righteousness. And the argument is, you're not being loving to especially the LGBTQ community, but the righteousness of God is for your good and for our good, for all of our good. And like we are, in America, we hold it to be self-evident that we're endowed by our Creator with these rights. We have a Creator. We have an identity that is derived from Him, not from within ourselves. And so what's happening with like what we're doing to our kids in these schools that are imposing this, trans ideology and LGBTQ ideology is imposing a wrong-headed view of identity, and it's causing depression, anxiety, fearfulness, hatred, bitterness. It's ripping kids apart.
In my current job, I work with Vision AI, artificial intelligence that's based on using camera images to make determinations. And so I train people on how to train AI models, and so when we start the training class, one of the first things I do is I show them a slide of an apple, and I go, "What is this?" And everybody pops up and says, "Well, that's an apple." Yes, it's an apple, but how did you know it's an apple?
Yeah.
What did you go through to learn that that's an apple and not an orange or some other fruit?
Yeah. Or a cell phone or anything else. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you talk about the fact that, you're shown a lot of different apples, and in some cases you're shown a picture of an apple and a parent tells you that's an apple. And then eventually you're shown a picture and they go, "What is that?" And you tell them it's an apple. And they say, "Good job. That's right."
But you learned what was true.
Right. And the fact of the matter is that every apple kind of looked the same. You learned to identify it based on how it appears. Unfortunately, today we're in an environment where a boy isn't necessarily a boy and a girl isn't necessarily a girl when you're looking at them. And so, you can't really tell what's a boy and what's a girl.
Yeah.
A Vision AI has that same problem because you have to go deeper. You have to actually start looking at things that you can't see visually to be able to make that determination. Well, it confuses an AI. Well, what do you think that does to a small developing brain?
Yeah.
It's confusion.
Yeah.
And
perversion.
And so how are we suddenly not realizing that we're creating the confusion that's leading to what comes down the road?
Yeah, it is. that's why there's, such an furor about this. And what troubles me is not like, I understand there's going to be people out there that want to do evil to our kids. That's fine. But like, what is it with the institution of our schools where they're holding on to it and like fighting so hard? Like, what is that?
Honestly, and I say this with all sincerity, the teachers unions have taken and gotten a demonic grasp of the education system. And it's, they are working for the other side, and you have to understand that. And that's why, school board elections matter.
Well, yeah, we got to take these things back, because like, I know a woman at my church who spent many, many years public education in Iowa City, and she a great educator. She's doing a great job. Earned the trust of the families in low income area, working hard, and they came to her. The school district eventually did, and said, "Well, you're going to be the one who's going to introduce the drag queens and the trans ideology to these little kids," and she's like, "Well, no, I'm not." And so good for her for standing on principle, right? But they kick, she's not working for them. She's driven out of education. So like, the people who really are great for our kids, like, this isn't like Republican or Democrat issue. It's like just people who are defending these children are being driven out of our schools.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to, like, school board, get involved, get your school board in order, I guess, right? That's what we got to do.
It's about taking control, taking back the control that you have as a parent. The education of your children is your responsibility.
Yeah.
Homeschool.
You will stand before God and answer for that.
Homeschool parents understand this better than anybody, but, it still applies to parochial and public school parents as well. You are responsible for what your child is being educated. And so get involved, understand what it is that they're learning.
Yeah.
And if it's not appropriate, say something about it, do something about it. And we're starting to see that more and more frequently today. But, for a good 20, 30 years, we just kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. And the people, I mean, one of the things that bugs me, another thing is like, the Democrats, people who really do care for their kids. They're like, I don't mind having them as my neighbors. I can get along with them and everything. But they are so entrenched in their side of this debate, as they've lost all moral credibility, right? Not necessarily these people in the community so much as like the people they keep electing. And they have, I guess, been, in my view, so affected by, what we sometimes on the right colloquially call Trump derangement syndrome, or they're just so full of hatred, blind hatred for Donald Trump, that they will just take whatever side is opposed to him no matter what. And I mean, in terms of like, I'm in Johnson County, Iowa City's here and stuff, like, all right, fine. I don't care if you come over and vote for Donald Trump, whatever. But can we at least agree that we ought to take care of our kids here, and that teachers who want to do a good job aren't driven out of our school districts and like things like that? Like, what are those people like? What can we do for our communities? Like, at some point we are just going to have to impose the will of righteousness, because we have to defend our own families and our own things. But like, it'd be sure a lot nicer if we could come together on some of these things that seem really obvious.
And I don't know if we've passed that point of no return. It feels like if we're not there yet, we're getting really close to where you just can't have a conversation anymore.
So frustrating. Charlie Kirk tried to, right?
Charlie was
killed
trying.
him. Yeah.
Charlie was trying, and Charlie was succeeding. And I think that's why he died, is because he was succeeding. And
and that's really the truth of like, one of the things that got me in trouble was on January 6th was what I had, my eyes had been opened to like, oh, in America, we are basically in a color revolution. Color revolution being like that is what it was in Russia when the communists took over, or China. And like, it's like our institutions have been so saturated by this, you know, godless Marxism, basically, that people are now fueled by fear and shame and rage. And sometimes, especially on like those feelings, sometimes have roots in truths, but what they express is like their own selfish will to just take over the government and use it as a bully and a club against their enemies, which is a total departure from the United States. Like, they are trying to overthrow the government of the United States, because what our government is, what we hold to be self-evident, is we're all created equal. We are endowed by our Creator with the unalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And the reason why governments are instituted among men is to secure those rights, and they derive their just powers from consent of the governed. That's Declaration of Independence. That's what bound us together as the states. It's what united the states, right?
Yep.
People are tearing that. People are tearing that apart
on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing that I find most fascinating when I'm out and about campaigning right now is that you can still have a conversation with people as long as you...
I mean, good for you. Somebody's got to go out and have these conversations.
As long as you actually talk to people, or talk with, or have communication with. The moment you start talking over or around people, that's when you lose them.
Well, can you tell us some strategies you use for that? Because like, I just feel like it would be great if our media was out there doing that for us and helping people come to the right conclusions. But media, it seems to me, is like departed from that. You're either hearing one side or the other. And like, so it's like kind of up to us as citizens. Right. So like, how do you like, instead of talking around or over people, how do you talk to someone?
So it's kind of like having an interview as a journalist. It starts off with, tell me your story. It's not, yes, when I'm out on the campaign trail, I'm trying to sell myself as a candidate for the job.
Yeah, you have convictions, of course.
But if I'm going to actually represent you, I should probably know a little bit about you.
Yeah.
And what you need and what you want, so that I can see how closely I align to that.
Even somebody who doesn't agree with you, you still hold your convictions because you believe that to be the best thing for that person. You know, collect them individually, but also collectively as a community.
Yeah. All too often when I've had candidates come door knocking in the past, it's all about, you know, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm running for such and such, and I'm just wanting to let you know that I'm here and running, and here's my materials.
And you should definitely vote for me.
And you know, vote for me, and I hope I can get your support. And then you just they kind of walk away, and you're like, okay, well, don't you want to know anything about what I want, what I need? You want to represent me, but have you listened to me?
Yeah.
And that the best interviews when I was a journalist came from an exchange. It wasn't just a simple ask a bunch of questions and get a bunch of answers. It was tell me about you. Tell me about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And kind of like what we do right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're throwing as much into this conversation as I am.
Right.
And we're having a
discussion to try to get to the truth, right?
Exactly. And that's how it's supposed to work. All too often now, it's shove a microphone in someone's face, ask them a ridiculously silly question.
Try to get a talking point or something to make people mad about.
Right. Yeah. And then you listen for the answer that you're looking for, and the second you rip the microphone away and you walk away. Yeah. That's not journalism. That's not even man on the street. That's
just, you've abandoned the duty of media.
Right.
Like God gave media a purpose, and you've betrayed that.
How many times do you go and you read it? You read a headline and you jump into the article and you get 3 paragraphs in, and then the next 7 or 8 things is just simply tweets.
Yeah.
Someone tweeted something.
Somebody's commentary, like,
Come on, that's not journalism.
No.
That's just telling me that's telling me what social media says.
Yeah.
Is that really news?
I can look at that myself. Come on.
Exactly.
Like, I tuned into you as a journalist to help me discern the truth and help me think about this issue from, I have a perspective, but maybe I would like to understand the broader perspective. But it's just, where do we find that in journalism?
Oh no, X is upset about XYZ.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a day ending in Y. How's this different from any other day?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things, this is interesting story I have. I think I tell this in my book, but this guy I was in prison with was he was Democrat, like hardcore Democrat. He was actually from Muscatine, and he was locked up for some kind of drugs or something like that. And I got along with him actually pretty well. And he sat down at lunch with me, like maybe one of the first couple days I was in prison, and he knew I was a January 6er. I was a high profile case, so everybody in the yard knew who I was. And he sat me down and he told me, like, Leo, they should have shot you guys. They should have just killed all of you guys that were at January 6th. And I was like, what? Whoa, dude. Like,
yeah.
But that was his opinion was formed by the media, right? And the media had intentionally lied about this, right? And it was basically propaganda. And I had experienced this firsthand because I'd given an interview, which was eyewitness account, which was actually had made it had 4 million views on the internet and stuff. And so it was getting traction, but then it got banned, cut off. So all the alternative voices in our media were shutting off alternate perspective. So anyway, this story with this guy in prison, he started off by telling me we all needed to be shot. Well, during my time being locked up was when they started coming with this lawfare against the president constantly, or that Donald Trump, and they were suing him, and I don't think anybody even really knew the details of the cases. Like, the media wasn't reporting that, but what this guy became aware of, because everybody in prison knows that the system's corrupt, whether it is corrupt or it isn't. In my case, it is. That's the attitude in prison. So after this stuff had been happening with Trump, he went from totally hating Trump to, he told me about halfway through my term of imprisonment, it's kind of good. Trump, one thing that's good about him is he's exposing the corruption in the system. And I just said, oh, okay, sounds good. So fast forward another few months, and I've been in prison almost a year now, and he comes to me again at lunch, and he tells me his political views, and gives me this whole speech about, you can't just make political decisions based on emotion. You have to do it on the facts. And so he tells me, well, Leo, that's why I've decided that I'm a Donald Trump supporter now. And it was funny because that was, I think, what I was doing. I wasn't able to, I never convinced him to be a Trump supporter. And there was literally nothing I could have said to convince him. And actually, if I would have talked at him, talked over him, talked around him like you're talking about, I probably would have turned him off.
Yeah.
But he was just a guy that was in prison with me. And I actually got along with him personality-wise. So I just talked to him, and he would use me as a sounding board for his political opinions. And well, that was fine. I listened, and well, look at how the result of that was,
Right. And in many ways, that's what Charlie Kirk was trying to do as well, is, have a conversation.
Yeah.
Not you yell your talking point, I yell my talking point. It's the split screen Fox News approach to journalism.
I'm so tired of that.
And what are you actually accomplishing when you do that? You're further polarizing the people that actually need to be brought together, educated, and enlightened, so that they understand exactly what their duty is. John Adams said, or John Quincy Adams, said, duty is mine, results are God's. And so how can you do the duty if you're not equipped? If you aren't equipped for success to perform the duty, well, the results are always going to be the same.
Yeah. So get yourself equipped. Like, get out there and do it. And like, part of the division in media is like, I think we just have to come aware of like, we are in an information war, right? Like, this is like in the American Revolution, the citizens had to rise up and be the soldiers. Well, guess what? Same deal. We're in information war. Don't expect like the media to come to our aid. They're just not going to. Like, as their kind of participants, even the right-wing media that maybe I agree with most of their talking points, what they do is they divide us into camps. And that's how a color revolution works, is you just keep dividing people and dividing people. You've got men against women, and you have LGBTQ versus straight, and then you have trans versus LGBTQ, and you have black versus white, and you have like just poor versus rich, city versus rural, like divide. And then you just capitalize on that chaos. And then you hope that you can cause a revolution and take over the government. That's how it's repeated over and over in history. And what it results in is widespread poverty, widespread death, ripping apart of families, destruction of communities, just awful things. Like, so, but I'm encouraged in that, like, well, we never had a chance in the American Revolution, right? We were taking on the most powerful nation in the world.
Exactly.
And regular Americans just picked up their musket and said, no, we're not standing for this. We're going to stand for liberty. We hold it to be self-evident that there's some other things true. And this, what the British are doing to us is just so awful that we're going to take our God-given right to defend ourselves. Well, we don't have to do that with firearms, thank God, right now. Although we have every right to defend ourselves. But we got to do it in the information sense. We got to arm ourselves with information. We got to arm ourselves with the Holy Spirit, with gracious words, but firm conviction of truth, right? Like,
And in many ways, like we did in the American Revolution, we need the church to step up and take its role.
What is the church's role?
The church's role is to equip us spiritually for the battle.
Yes.
And in many regards, if you look at what was going on in the American church at the same time as the American Revolution, you see that there was a lot of spiritual armor making and spiritual encouragement coming from the pulpit. Mm-hmm. You had pastors that went on the battle lines with their congregations because it meant something to be there and defend this God-given liberty.
Yeah,
and we don't have that today. Our churches are, and I say this in a general sense.
Yeah.
There are some churches that are very much trying to do this. Yeah. But in general, the church in America is not prepared. They're not. Yeah. Our own pastors aren't prepared for the battle, much less equipping their congregations for the battle.
Yeah.
And that's where we're lacking.
Well, and they're not prepared. And I think that's why a lot of times they retreat back into this, like, oh, well, we're just going to talk about the Bible, or we're just all about the gospel. Well, if the Bible and the gospel don't have an impact on everyday life, then aren't you practicing a form of godliness but denying its power? The government is God's servant to do you good. I think I said that earlier, but that's in the Bible, right? Well, that was written to people under the Roman Empire who had no influence over the government. We are in a new situation. We are the government. Mm-hmm. So that means we are God's servant to do other people good in while we wield in our government authority to vote and whatever else. So we have to do that. And the churches, they gotta teach us how to do that. That's what, pastors and teachers, be our shepherds, show us like how to discern who to pick for a school board, who to be a county supervisor, who to be, on the city council. We got to have that.
Unfortunately, they're so concerned about losing their tax exempt status by doing that they don't. Right. And again, this is how the tax code is used to control, not the other way around.
But we need men and women of courage and leadership to because I understand that the government very publicly trampled on my constitutional rights to do with January 6th, and they are willing to do that to basically anyone. But in terms of from a morality perspective, the supreme law of the land says that their Congress shall make no law restricting the free exercise of religion. And the free exercise of religion includes spiritually equipping people to run the government.
Exactly.
There's no debate about that.
None.
No debate about that.
Yeah. No, the Constitution is surprisingly unequivocal about a whole lot of things. Especially when you pair it with what the authors were saying in the Federalist Papers about, when they're defending the new document. They're talking about, okay, there's a hierarchy to our government. It's not just three co-equal branches. They didn't see it that way.
Nope.
And so when you start digging into these documents and reading what the actual
intent is. Could you just tell us, what are the Federalist Papers?
So the Federalist Papers were documents.
Everyone should read these, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It should be something that you should read at some point in time in your life, because it helps you understand what your constitutional rights are.
Yeah.
What and they're not even constitutional rights; they're God-given rights.
Yeah.
The Constitution is simply there to protect them.
It's just the machinery the government uses to protect them. Yeah. So, okay. So the Federalist Papers are...
So the Federalist Papers were written by a group of men who were trying to help promote the Constitution after it was written.
So it was written by the convention, and then it was going around to each state. And
each state needed to ratify it.
If they didn't ratify it,
right,
we might not be the United States.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the Federalist Papers were more or less opinion pieces, the op-ed pieces that were being written and shared across the United States to try to encourage people when it was time to vote in favor of the new Constitution.
Yeah.
As opposed to what we had with the Articles of Confederation. And so it does do a deep dive on each of the individual aspects of the Constitution and how the government was structured. How the government was supposed to interact with the people.
Yeah, can you tell us, what is, if we were operating our government the way it was philosophically set to be, what are some of those things? What are the purposes of the branches, and how are those supposed to interact with we the people?
Sure. So as the people, we are the ones that determine who our elected representatives are. So we're the ones that vote them in, but we're also the ones that hold them accountable. They're not accountable to anyone other than us. And so our job is to keep them in line by, communicating to them.
Yeah.
Telling them what we think. Giving them feedback about the job they're doing, that sort of thing.
And they have a duty to listen to us. And
they absolutely have a duty to respond. And you don't see that very often anymore.
That's what January 6th was all about. What I went to prison for was we as a collective group of protesters, we saw major problems with the 2020 election, and we were demanding redress from our government, which is our constitutional right. The supreme law of the land requires our government to respond to us, which they did not do. And it's just whatever, one more marker of just the contempt for the Constitution that is in Washington, D.C.
So you had, in Congress, you have the House, which, they're basically a population-based representation. And then you have the Senate, where it's equal representation.
Two senators for each state.
As originally envisioned, however, they were answerable to the state legislature.
Yeah.
Not directly elected. And so senators would oftentimes get recalled very quickly if they weren't doing what the legislature thought they should do. Many times based on what the composition of the legislature would dictate who the senator would be.
Yeah. So that would be the people in Des Moines would elect our Chuck Grassley or Joni Ernst rather than us was across the people. So it'd be just a little bit different perspective on what type of person that would be.
Senators had 6-year terms, but in some cases they didn't serve a full 6 years because...
Oh, they could just pull them back?
You could recall a senator very easily with just a majority vote. And,
We could use some of that.
well, if you look at it, when we went from legislative appointment to direct election, the longest a senator had ever served.
When did that happen?
This would have been in 1913, I believe.
Okay. And that was changed by
constitutional amendment.
Okay.
Okay. I'm blanking on the number right
now. That's fine. Yeah, but basically we went through a major process to change the Constitution to make it where senators are elected directly by people rather than by state legislatures.
When that occurred, we went from the longest serving senator ever having served roughly about 18 years, I think. Mm-hmm. Now we have senators that serve for 40.
Look at Chuck Grassley. He's been in there forever. Yeah. Eternally conducting investigations.
Yes. So you can see how it has changed what was intended.
Yeah. We talk about, one of the most popular movements right now among people is term limits. Well, it's funny that we kind of voted ourselves out of that in the 19 teens whenever that amendment was passed. Like what?
Yep.
Why did we do that?
Right. And then there's a lot of talk about, well, we just need to get rid of the filibuster. Well, you can't get rid of the filibuster. The filibuster is unlimited debate. Mm-hmm. The Senate has always had unlimited debate. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is just literally built into the Senate. Mm-hmm. Cloture is the means by which you end debate. Mm-hmm. And it requires a
60% of the,
Right. Didn't always. Mm-hmm. Previously, it was 75%, mm-hmm. and they kind of watered it down.
Yeah, you could change cloture to be 51% if you wanted to. Yeah,
right. And that's, I think, what people are wanting is they want to just get rid of that. But on the other hand, that cloture is there to kind of help protect the minority mm-hmm. from a out of control majority, which. Yep. We've seen what an out-of-control Democrat majority can do.
Right.
So I appreciate what people are wanting in terms of, we have a majority.
For the SAVE Act right now, yeah. Hey, let's get the SAVE Act passed.
We have a majority. We should be able to get what we want done. Mm-hmm. And I get that. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, there are special protections built into the system for a reason.
Yeah.
And why are we questioning that wisdom?
Yeah, and some of the, I don't remember what the mechanism was, but one of the rules in the Senate was actually Chuck Grassley, when Obama was in, ended up delaying the nomination process for a Supreme Court justice until the time that Trump took office. So these sometimes infuriating rules in the Senate, without those, we may still have Roe v. Wade in place without that. So there is wisdom in just informing ourselves with history. I still wish they'd get the SAVE Act passed.
Yeah. So, you've got, with the Federalist Papers, they're talking about, you've got Congress. Mm-hmm. Congress, in their eyes, was the most powerful of the branches. Mm-hmm. The presidency was the next most powerful, mm-hmm. Only in the regards that Congress holds the purse strings. So the executive can't do anything if Congress won't pay for it.
Right. Which is why this big issue with the government shutting down comes up every so many months. It's that Congress is basically flexing their muscle in their constitutional muscle over the executive branch, which is the president and almost everything else in government, saying, we're not going to give you your money unless you do what we want.
Yes. So if you want Congress to do what the president is trying to do, mm-hmm. it's on you as a voter to ensure that the people that go to Congress are going to follow what the president wants to do. That's how the system is built to work. Mm-hmm. The judiciary was actually seen as the weaker of the three branches.
Which actually it wasn't even created when the Constitution was ratified. It was Congress was authorized to create courts, right?
Right. So there was a one judge for a Supreme Court.
Okay.
And anything beyond that is at the discretion of what Congress establishes. And so Congress over time has established a federal judiciary.
Right.
They've established the appellate court structure. They've established that there are 9 seats on the Supreme Court, and all of that. That's all by statute. That's not constitutional.
Yeah.
Per se.
It's constitutional in the sense that Congress was authorized to do that if they chose to,
Correct.
which they have chosen to.
Correct.
But it's not.
Congress can take it away.
The judiciary can, like, that's one of the things. Congress can dissolve a court if they feel like it.
Yes.
And we have, like, in Washington, D.C., when I was in trial, like, it was just common knowledge. All the lawyers knew it, and the judge would talk about it. The Constitution doesn't apply in Washington, D.C. Now, that's not because it's not the supreme law of the land. It is, like, I mean, it says it's the supreme law of the land. It is the supreme law of the land. The rights that are guaranteed by it are, by the way, we hold them to be hold it to be self-evident that those are unalienable. They come from the Creator. So anyway, but these judges would just tell me, like, or my judge in D.C. told me, like, well, you know, if everyone held on to their constitutional rights, the system would break down. And I'm like, well, how are you more loyal to a system than you are to the Constitution?
Exactly. Bring it down.
Yeah, right? I mean, if you have a system, I mean, if the real truth is, like,
if the
they have a court that is operating on under another power than the United States.
Exactly.
There's a foreign power in place there.
If that system is so woefully broken,
yeah,
then tear it down.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Like, we're like, or if you refuse to, you are engaged in rebellion against the United States.
I can love my country and disagree with my government.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
It's that simple.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, heavy topics today.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this, Bob. Thanks for being here for this. What else? What else do you want people to know about you? Like, what other things are should voters be aware of? What do you want to accomplish? And you can kind of take that any direction you want to.
Yeah. For me, it's about serving the needs of the people. It's about getting Iowa as a state back to what the framers intended, which is a freestanding nation, a state.
Yeah.
That isn't dependent on handouts from the federal government to function. A lot of people don't realize just how much money that we're beholden to the federal government for.
Yeah.
And as a result, there are always strings attached to federal dollars.
Right.
Always. And you have to jump through the hoops. You have to do what the federal government tells you to do to be able to keep that money. And so that's how they exert their control. Yeah. And if you want to have true local control, if you want to be in charge of your own life, you have to be financially independent.
Yeah.
It's true for you and me, but it's true for our state government.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing for me is what can I do to make every Iowan's life better? And what can I do to make Iowa a better place?
Yeah. A lot of that has to do with cutting those strings of control that are wielded through fiscal policy, taxation policy, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Man, that would be such a great thing. I mean, and then just think about that would decouple us. If everything doesn't have to be routed through Washington, D.C., well, guess what? California can run however they want to run. You know what I mean? Like, just don't impose that on us. In New York, you can run how you want to run. Texas, go ahead. Like, we're different states. Let's actually embrace how cool it is that we can have different cultures that are all bound together under this union that is the United States. I mean, it's actually awesome. Like,
exactly.
I just, it's so hopeful and so neat what we could be, and what we have been, right? Like, I mean, I think we can go back there. I mean, what do what reasons do you see to have hope for Iowa, for the United States? Like, I mean, where are you at on that?
I'm not alone. And that's the cool part is that I'm not the only guy trying to do this.
Right.
There are several of us running this year that are all pretty much of the same mindset. And that's really cool because I can remember, 20, 25 years ago, where there would only be one or two candidates that are truly talking about conservatism and liberty and advancing freedom.
Yeah.
It's not like that anymore. There's probably a good dozen of us that are going to be on the ballot this year.
That's great.
That, we're truly wanting to go in and fix what's wrong.
Yeah.
Make it better and improve the lives of not just Republicans, but all Iowans.
Yeah. Yeah. Praise God for that. Thank you. You and all those people who are out there contending for that. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
Well, one more time, can you tell just people how to find you, what your district is again, and like maybe describe where the voting
exactly
area is?
So I'm running to represent Senate District 19 here in Iowa, which is all of Jasper County, the vast majority of Marion County, and a small sliver of Mahaska County. So we're in South Central Iowa. We've got Newton, Pella, just to the west of Oskaloosa.
Okay.
So that kind of general geographic area.
Very good.
You can find my website at Bob, the number 4, Iowa.com.
Okay.
And then I'm also Bob Eschliman for Iowa on Facebook and X.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Really appreciate having you today.
I appreciate being here. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Father, we just lift up Bob and his campaign to you today. I ask that you would turn your attention to him, to make your face shine on him, to bring him the voters that he needs, the money that he needs, the inner strength and inspiration that he needs. Will you give him the support structure around him and his family and community to hold him up? Will you give him the connections and the friendships he needs, Lord? And just will you give him the words to speak the truth? And will you make him a light for righteousness, for goodness, for doing government the way that you want it to be done down around Pella and Newton and all those areas, Lord? May he be a blessing to Des Moines. I ask that you would just favor his campaign. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.